can't get beyond your own capabilities. Whereas other people get leveraged in, this is where people who are investing, though, they've jumped in on pools that they're beyond, and they're going to get wiped out. Their pool, their savings are going to get wiped out, which is happening right now anyway. But what am I getting at? So that big that we've been going through. Is there anything else we do more? You realize we all eat massive amounts of more than we used to. You all understand that. The portions we eat are huge compared to what we used to eat in the 60s. Do you understand that? And the drugs we take are massive doses compared to what we used to do. And the houses we're living in, the square footage is much more. Everybody understand? The cars are big. Everybody understand that, right? Okay. Anything you can think of, it is bigger. It's all bigger. The educations we're getting are far larger than they were. The massive amount of computing.
They're more efficient, though.
They're more efficient, but they're massive over-computing. They compute too much.
Oh, I just heard on NPR tonight, if the rest of the world ate as much as America does, we need 2.5 globes to grow that much food.
And just think about this. What's America's, what's the poor in America, what's their number one problem?
Right.
Diabetes from obesity. They eat too much. Where in the history of mankind have the poor people the problem be they have too much to eat? Okay, we got too many TVs, we got too many of everything more than we can use. So all that's changing, and it's gonna this year. All right.
It's safer to be at a small business level because even if the bubble bursts, you're still at the same level. You're not really losing out.
You'll adjust under the new thing, but you haven't leveraged yourself out too much. And then at the University of Washington Engineering Library, on your own, you can do a patent search free of charge, and you can do Google patent search, and you can go to uspto.gov. Why do we want to go to uspto.gov? Did I not, the first night, go into detail saying stay away from intellectual properties? Because at the small business level, we don't want to own any intellectual properties because if and when we, by the time we go through the cost and expense, we've locked down something that we're going to change anyway, and we're going to move out of it before anybody steals it from us anyway. We want to invest $5,000, get $5,000 back, and before anybody steals it from us, we'll be walk away from the item anyway. And that was pretty much my argument the first night. You have a question?
Oh, I thought you were going to ask, so what's our interest? And then the answer was going to be that it goes both ways.
Go ahead.
Like, we don't want to step on someone else's toes.
Yeah, that is another fear we all have, is we're going to be sued, and I want to address that right now along those lines. Now, I'm going to tie a couple things together here, and that is design, intellectual property right, and managing. We do live in an intellectual property right regime, even though we're not going to be exercising it ourselves. So what do we do in the United States along those lines? And then there's the issue if we are competing on design, are we designers? I'm not. And I think last week I talked about even Eric Clapton has people come in and produce him, that is redesign him for the market. Everybody does this in every field all the time. So let's talk about this whole thing from the point of view of designers, getting people to design our product for us. And where do we find designers that we want to come up with a better ice axe? Well, if you're a mountain climber, you probably know other mountain climbers who have design capability, and that's probably somebody to partner with. I mean, where would Bill Gates be without Paul Allen? Where would Steve Jobs be without Wozniak? Where would Berger be without King, or the comedy team of Burns and Allen? The studies show that partnerships thrive better, faster than sole proprietors. So don't be afraid of bringing on a partner to work with. Okay, reasonably, this would be a complementary skill or talent to whatever one you happen to have. If you don't have the gift of ADD, you're the person that actually gets work done and focuses, well, then you probably want to bring on that gift of ADD in your partner. So that's a very common area to find the other designers. The second level is when you're doing your research, the newspapers, magazines, trade journals, articles, you're going to come across the names of designers. Karl Lagerfeld designing for Chanel. Well, contact Karl Lagerfeld. What can you? Yes, that's what they do for a living. Now, I'm not in that business or some upcoming new name. And you'll find big companies will bring in names to design something. You do the same thing. You're going to work on something. I'll give you 2 examples of this when I'm starting in Gifton Housewares years ago. There's 2 designers in that field that are well known. The Pelsmans in LA and Lowell Herrero in San Francisco. Now, I can walk into your homes and find things designed by them even though you've never heard of them. Another example of nobody's ever heard of these people even though they're all over the place. But so I contact them. Now, the best in all these industries will work on a royalty basis. So when I approach the Pelsmans, they say, you know, in Gifton Housewares, the standard royalty rate is 6%. And that's what they're going to work on. The more I sell, the more they make. Now, the problem, though, is they come into you and they say, the royalty rate is 6%. And I need a $5,000 advance on those royalties. That's very standard. If you went to a songwriter like Prince and said, write a hit song for me on a royalty basis, he'd say, absolutely, but I need $1 million up front on the advance on the royalties. I'm sure that's what he would ask for and get if he were ever to write a song for somebody else. So, who's the singer who shaved her head? Sinead O'Connor. Her song, her big hit song, what was it? No One But You or whatever it was. Well, that Prince wrote that song. I can't remember the name of the song anyway. But so that's, you know, somebody buying those songs and doing a royalty on them, as opposed to just a cover. But and from which you pay a royalty as well. But so when I approached the Pelsmans and I approached Lowell Herrero about doing designs for me for my glassware in the category I wanted them to do designs for me, they both said, which is standard in my industry, $5,000 advance against royalties. Now, this would never occur to me, and happily I'd worked for other people for 10 years, and happily I learned what to say, and happily I worked for people who would never pay in advance on anything, anytime over any. It just won't happen. So what they taught me to say is when somebody says to you, there's a $5,000 advance on royalties, your reply is that all? Just $5,000? Everything you touch turns to gold. That's great. And I've got $5,000. But here's my problem. I want to give you the $5,000 to get your design because I've got retailers who say it's a good idea, it doesn't exist. And if I can get those designs to this factory, I got the factory ready to make them, the best in the world. And if I can get those samples out here, then I'll be able to get those orders. But here's the problem. To get those samples out there, I got to get them out of the factory, I got to get the customs brokers, I got to get the reps, I got all these other people who are going to use up my $5,000 in advance. So I got the $5,000, but if I give it to you, I don't have it to get the product out there. If I don't give it to you, I can't get the sample. Why don't you waive the requirement for the $5,000 advance? And I'll get the samples going out here soon enough and into the trade show cycle that's coming up right now. This will start a royalty flow happening right away, and you'll get money coming in right away. You'll get up to $5,000 right and royalties thereafter. Waive the $5,000 advance requirement. Tell me we have a deal. Pelsman said, oh, okay.
Your own personal Jesus, someone to hear your prayers, someone who cares. Reach out and touch faith. Reach out and touch faith.